𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒆𝒔. I just noticed that Facebook no longer supports landscape on your phone. I hate these two black things on the side. Maybe I need to adjust my phone settings or something. Alright guys, good afternoon. It's afternoon here already, so good afternoon, good evening for those in Gambia. And apologies in advance, I'm suffering from a cold, so my voice is not the best. I'm drinking tea, so if I start sweating too, I know I sweat a lot, but that's part of it. Trying to get my voice to calm down. Anyway, let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Yeah, I had to turn off my Wi-Fi because sometimes that also causes problems. I don't know, like signal low, signal high. All right, thank you, Stuart. All right, let me turn this volume down. So, main concern for me basically is the fact that we are watching somebody's life being essentially ruined. Because it looks like from all indications the state is determined to convict Ousainou Bojang. Even though from a layman's perspective, from even the legal minded people's perspective, the evidence from the state is almost non-existent. They're just determined to push forward with this, and we cannot sit down and say, oh yeah, let the law take its course, or the due process or whatever. Nobody is disrespecting the due process. We understand that. But what we are witnessing also is the fact that the state's case is a very, 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 very weak case. I don't know what kind of jury system the Gambia operates, but in anywhere else where they have a jury system, you will not find 12 people on that panel who will convict this guy and say that he committed the crime. So this is just a disclaimer to those people who will come and say, oh, you're not legal experts, you should just let the lawyers and the courts and the judges play their thing in court. Citizens can examine evidence. We are not speculating on any evidence. What we are going to talk about is basically the evidence that is being presented in court. We heard from the state star witness, Mama Jabi, whose story doesn't add up at all. We heard from the accused person, who is Ousainou. And we heard from security officers, we heard from government officials. All of them brought their evidence forward. So we need to put that together, scrutinize it, and see if what they are saying is in fact true. That this guy that they accuse of killing police officers is the guy who killed the police officers. That's our responsibility as people. We need to put politics aside and make sure, when it's a matter of justice, especially in the Gambia where the death penalty still exists, that somebody is accused of a crime as serious as killing police officers on duty. And if they don't get the right person, they're just going to convict the wrong person, ruin his life, while the people or the person who is responsible walks scot-free. And we are not doing this for politics' sake. Yes, we will defend UDP because what they are saying is ridiculous, and that is included in this because they brought it up. So we will tackle that as well. But mainly because a lot of us, if not all of us, have relatives in the police who are not, senior officers with their own protection detail. These are the young people who will get sent out to go and contain situations when they arise, wherever they arise in the country, with their lives being in danger. And who's going to advocate for them? Because in their, discipline, you obey. Whenever you're getting given instructions, you just obey. Go ahead and carry out those instructions. So there'll be a message for them in there as well. We're doing this for no other reason than to do our part to try to save the life of somebody who I am convinced is not guilty of the crime that they're accusing him of. So let's lay out the timeline of what it is that happened up to this point that we are. And you will see for yourself that the state case is weak. And I'm not a lawyer by training, just, a disclaimer. Basically, any reasonable person can assess and determine if evidence brought forward is factual or not. So now that we are hearing from the suspect himself in this murder trial, we can piece together everything that has so far obtained in this whole process. On September 12, 2023, which was a little over 1 year ago, we had news that there was a shooting in the Gambia involving 3 police officers, right? The police issued a statement confirming that there was a shooting, and in their statement they said the Gambia police has been alerted to a shocking act of violence where 3 constables from the police intervention unit were targeted in a shooting at the 𝒂𝒄𝒏 traffic lights by an unidentified assailant. That was the first press release that the police came up with when this incident happened. So in the initial release, they didn't say anything about fatalities. They didn't report any fatalities or anything like that. Just that 3 officers were injured and transported to 𝒂𝒄𝒏 Health Center and then to Ndaban Clinic due to the seriousness of their injuries. So they added, in response to this grave situation, an immediate manhunt has been initiated to identify and apprehend the individual or individuals. Their initial report is the individual or individuals responsible for this incident. I'm pointing out, emphasizing these points because they are important. The report also mentions a civilian male eyewitness who was actively cooperating with police investigations, providing a detailed description of the lone gunman who was observed wearing a kaftan and carrying a pistol. When they said this, you can go to my timeline, we did say that this doesn't make any sense. The police are suspicious that it is an individual or group of individuals, but they find a person who said there was one person who did the shooting, and he gave a description as somebody who was wearing a kaftan and carrying a pistol. The mother weapon, they say, is a pistol. And the person wearing a kaftan, there's no facial features. Was he tall? Was he short? Was he fair complexion? Was he? None of that was mentioned. Just that somebody wearing a kaftan and carrying a pistol. Something that can be very easily concealed. They didn't mention anything else about the person. We later learned that at the hospital, 2 officers were confirmed dead, which is Pate Jallo and Sang Mendy. And then Nancy Jao was injured. But during the the deputy IGP and the national security team, during their press conference, they said the lady was still alive, recovering well, and, at the time. So this obviously was a shocking incident for all Gambians. Nobody in that country hears of shootings. Whenever we hear shootings, we attribute it to maybe there's a coup attempt in the country. That's the only experience we have with the sound of guns in the Gambia. Whenever you hear guns, there's a coup attempt. Or the military is involved, which is when they will, issue their alerts and say, oh, we're going to the range to do practice, so don't be alarmed. That's the only time we hear about gunshots in the Gambia. So maybe that is what explains the reason why, even before the police were able to put out a statement, the army was the first to come out. It is not their jurisdiction, it's none of their business, but they were the first people to come out and say the Gambia Armed Forces just received information about an alleged shooting incident around 𝒂𝒄𝒏 traffic light. Details are sketchy, but a patrol team has been sent to the general area. At the time, we were like, what is the army doing issuing a press release? But if you look at it in context, that's because the only people who usually carry guns and who are attributed to the sound of guns in the Gambia is the army. So it's understandable now that, you know, they issued a press release. But after that, they never mentioned anything about the incident. They handed it over to the police to do their thing, whatever it is that they do. So that was the situation. So the police were pretty late when it came to issuing a press release. They came to the scene later than everybody else. The army issued a press release. The government was talking already. If we recall, that idiot, we'll get to him anyway. So because the police were issuing their official release much later than, essentially people knew about it before the police gave their report, because it was all over social media and people started commenting on it before we had anything official from, you know, the police. So let's get into that timeline. First, before anybody knows anything from the official sources in the Gambia, the first person to make a comment on it, as far as I'm concerned, is the Deputy Youth Advisor to the President, 𝒂𝒊𝒏. And today he's there accusing somebody else of threatening police officers. I don't know what his business is with all these accusations and lying about people, trying to ruin people's lives. But he was the first person who came on social media and started pointing fingers. Like I said, even before the police issued any statement, this is a person who is Deputy Youth Advisor to the President, very close to the corridors of power. It's not just any lame, you know, government functionary or whatever. He is Advisor to the President. That's his official title, essentially. So we will say he is close to the President. If you advise the President, it means you're close to him. You are not in any faraway office or whatever. You interact with the President. So he's in the corridors of power. He should have information firsthand, or at least know something that the President knows, or be present, maybe not at all briefings, but some briefings. So this will be our interpretation. You are an advisor to the President, you will be present when the President receives certain information. So why was he the first person to come out on social media, start pointing fingers even before the police came? That was when they started making their first mistakes as a government. You are not an authority on this incident. You don't know how investigations work. You don't have any information. In fact, there was no investigation officially mounted, but you came on social media pointing fingers. Instead of just saying there was a shooting incident and we call on the police to do their job, you went on social media, started pointing fingers. So, main point, the guy is very close to the President. He has no security training, no security experience as far as we know, and he's never been in any security outfit. But he was confident at the time, even before the police issued a statement, to come out and say, quote, 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒏, you and your team, 2 officers are shot dead. After days of you and your party colleagues called for attack, the English is not right, but I'm reading exactly what he said. 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒏, you and your team, 2 officers are shot dead. After days of you and your party colleagues called for attack on PIU officers to be dealt with, 2 of our officers are shot dead today. I hope you are happy. Where did he get that information from? Essentially, he is saying that this person who killed the police officers was incited by statements made by 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒏 and members of the UDP. That their goal has been achieved. They directed this man. I'm saying that because further context will reveal that that is what they're trying to say, that it was the UDP members who pushed this agenda forward and had the police officers killed. He didn't say that in his statement, but when we contextualize it in the face of all the evidence that came later, especially from Ibrahim Sankare and all the people who spoke on it from the government's angle, we know that was their target. So how did he know that? Within hours of the public receiving news of the shooting, he had come out with that statement. And very unusual for Adama Barrow to address the nation on anything. When the babies were killed, he was nowhere to be found. When disaster happens, he is nowhere to be found. He's always quiet, says nothing. But immediately he came out to address security chiefs, and the media was invited. So basically he was trying to talk to the nation, or talk to the security chief for the people to see what he was doing. Like, oh, Adama Barrow is also engaged in this affair. So what did he do when he came out to address the security chiefs? He declared that the motive for the shooting was to intimidate the police. Basically, with that statement, he drew a direct correlation between the clear targeting of uniformed police officers and recent social media utterances of some Gambians calling for action to put an end to police abuse of the rights of UDP supporters. That little sleight of hand that Adam Barrow did was to corroborate this statement made by his deputy youth advisor, who says that Madi said, I hope you and your people are happy 2 police officers are killed. To intimidate the police. How did he know that? No investigation was mounted yet. Nobody knows the motive. Nobody even knows who did the shooting. How did he know that this was supposed to intimidate the police? That's because that's their line. This is the UDP people. We can pin this on them. I'll get to what I think the whole goal of this is. But you're a fool if you take the government at its word. Their word, fine. We can take them at their word, but let it be backed up by evidence. We all know what happened to Jesus, 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒆𝒍. That state witness, 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒏, when Jesus came out and he had the opportunity after Yahya Jammeh was deposed to tell us what happened, we all know he was set up. We all know when those people, Malafi Kaur and others, were executed, what did they say? They were being transported and they escaped. When the Hydro was shot, what did they say? The state has no involvement in it. All these things, the government lies and lies and lies and always lies. And this is another episode of that, because the evidence doesn't back up what they say. But let's keep going. So why are they pointing to UDP? Why are they calling out Madi Cisse specifically? We will benefit from some context there. A few days prior to the shooting of the police officers, the state decided to revive a 3-year-old case, the sedition charges against Yankuba Dabo, after he won the mayoral election to be chairman of West Coast region. So Yanks, everybody knows he's a popular figure. From the days of Yahya Jammeh to the days of 3 years Jotna, he's an activist turned politician. So he has a lot of support. And immediately following his election that he won as West Coast chairman, that shows that he has popular support. So when they said they're going to revive his case and he should report to court, his supporters went to court to show solidarity. It is not a protest, so they don't require a permit. It is none of that. Solidarity. When they were doing it to the people that they arrested alongside Solo Sandeng after they murdered Solo Sandeng, UDP ladies were there. That's always the case. When Dabo and Co appeared in court, people will show up for solidarity and sing their songs and chant and show them that you still have support. There is nothing wrong with that. Courts are public spaces. So these people went there to show their solidarity to Yanks Dabo. That was the situation. And then the PIU officers were sent there for crowd control. What did they do? They assaulted a woman there to beat her up. Why? Whenever they appear at an event where UDP is concerned, they escalate the situation and then violence erupts. Because you don't have a right to abuse citizens. People are there to gathered. They are going to sing, they are going to chant, they are going to say things that you're not going to like. That doesn't mean you have a right to abuse them. It's their freedom of expression. They don't assault you, they don't throw stones at you, they didn't do anything. They just gathered. But conveniently, they started labeling it as a protest. It is not a protest. It was not a protest. They were there to show solidarity to Yanks Dabo after they decided to revive it for political motives. Everybody knows it is political motives. That's why they did it. Because if it is not political motives, the same sedition charges were there against Sabali. Why did they drop them? So people believe that was a case of persecution. And they gathered at the courts. That was where the police, because of their actions, they escalated the situation and they got into a confrontation with the people who were gathered there. So from that point on, we all remember, prior to that, after the 2021 election, they threw tear gas into Lawyer Dabo's home. Everybody knows that. We saw paramilitary officers on video saying, UDP people, you come out, we will kill you. Confessing to it on camera. And the police were doing nothing about it. Every single time that people come out, as far as it's a UDP crowd and it's not a political rally, even at political rallies, they are there. They just don't have the gusto to do what it is that they want to do. But every time they go, they misbehave and they escalate the situation where confrontations take place. What do you expect from people in the UDP? Enough is enough. Basically, that's what 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒏 and 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒆𝒑 said. We are not going to stand and excuse the police by, abusing us constantly as if they have a monopoly over violence. Enough is enough. The IGP needs to do something about it. We're not going to tolerate this anymore. That was the language. So they said that's a threat to police, public officials. Sometimes you can say the language is a bit harsh, yes. That was why people like Bayo Sonko and Sabali at the time were also arrested and charged with threatening public officers. What did they do? They had to drop that because there was no threat there. It was basically them expressing their frustration in an angry tone on social media. So that was the context. How does that translate from because you are angry at the police for mistreating your people, you decided that you're going to kill the police and now somebody has killed the police and that person is affiliated to you? Their whole target, Barrow and his administration, they cannot stop the UDP politically. They cannot throw anything at UDP that the UDP cannot take. We have been with Yahya Jammeh 22 years. There's nothing in the book he did not throw at the UDP, and we still survived. Barrow is a novice. He is an amateur. He has absolutely no intelligence whatsoever to be able to stop the UDP politically. So what is he going to do? He will smear, he will castigate, he will label, he will plot, he will scheme, just to make sure he catches UDP in a trap that he can say these are a threat to national security, which are actually said, so that he can ban them using the law. That's what all this provocation is. All of this. So this one just went south because can you imagine a whole, I don't know how many people were present. They plotted this and said, let's do it. And then we will just connect the guy to the UDP. And then eventually the investigations will lead to say the UDP actually did this. And then we will, that in my opinion, that's my opinion. I'm speculating. But that's my opinion. They schemed and plotted and said, we're going to ban the UDP and this is how we're going to do it. By associating them with killing police officers. Remember before, they also arrested Sabali in connection to what they said was a coup attempt. That guy, I think his name is Ba Ojello. If you see him, you know by his demeanor that this guy is, who plots a coup by yourself? All of these schemes, that's their end goal. How are we going to silence the UDP? And that's not going to happen in that country, where APRC, well, the Supreme Court says they are not a registered party anymore, but where the APRC exists and you said the UDP is not going to exist, that is not going to go down well in that country. And I'm not issuing a threat. You leave people do their politics. If they break the law, go after the person who breaks the law and take them to court. If there's something that you feel like violates the law, use the courts. But you're not going to make schemes to try to ban the UDP. You're going to get much worse than what your scheming is taking place. This is not a threat, it's not a warning, it's just a fact. You do your politics. If you cannot take the heat, get out of the kitchen. We will come after you. Whatever you do wrong, we're going to come after you. So this is their whole scheme. So that was where the UDP came into the picture, where 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒏 came into the picture, just for context. Like I said, let's be clear. The people who gathered to show solidarity and support, not to protest. The police escalated the situation and then made it look like a protest when it was not, in fact, a protest. So after that statement by the Deputy Youth Advisor, who was close to Adama Barrow, we will continue to say that, Sankare went on coffee time the next morning. And he just basically thought what he was doing is putting the icing on the cake, like we finally have the UDP. Here it is, here's the details. So on coffee time, he went on basically on all of this, as funny as it is, as tragic as it is, as unfortunate as it is, let us remember there is a young man whose life is at stake. A young man and his sister, completely innocent. Whatever your politics is, whatever your ideology is, whatever your views are, there is a young man whose life is at stake. There is a death penalty in the Gambia. Even if he doesn't get killed, he will spend the rest of his life in jail on a crime he did not commit. Consider that. 2 young people are killed for no other reason than wearing police uniforms supposed to protect the people. They were shot dead. The person who did it, the people who did it, nobody knows. They found this young guy and they accused him, about to ruin his life as well. The lady who was shot was in hospital, critically injured. I don't know if she's back on the force. But that's 3 people plus this young man 4 plus his sister 5. The state that is supposed to protect them is the very state that is allowed for the 2 of them to be killed and let the killers go free, and then are targeting innocent people to ruin their life as well on top of that. Keep that at the back of your mind, whatever your politics is. That's who we're advocating for. So when he went on Coffee Time with Peter Gomez, he went to further the same narrative that the young man next to the president was trying to espouse, that this was a UDP affair who instructed the killing of the police. So according to them, these were angry UDP supporters. Like I said, the crowd was gathered to show solidarity to their chairman and somebody that they admire, who is Young's Dabo. That was the gathering. It was not a protest. When he appeared on Coffee Time, 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒐𝒎 said that this guy worked at the Brikama Area Council. You see how they're escalating the situation. He said the suspect that was arrested worked at Brikama Area. This was less than 24 hours after the shooting. Mind you, less than 24 hours. Even if they arrested the person, they have not debriefed him yet, or at least questioned him. Even if they did, the police are not so quick, unless they can connect the dots and tie up some loose ends. They will only tell you, we have a suspect in custody that matches the description of what the eyewitnesses say. We are continuing with our investigations. They don't release any information in case that tips off other perpetrators and they run away. I'm not a police officer, but I think that's standard police procedure. They will tell you, we have suspect in custody and we are convinced, or we believe, based on the leads that we have, that he could be associated with this. We will release more information as we go on. But 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒐𝒎 knew at that time, less than 24 hours, in fact, less than 20 hours, because it was the next day, bright and early, that he went on Coffee Time saying that the guy used to work for Brikama Area Council. And he claimed that there was video evidence. It is 1 year, 2 months now. Today is the 14th. Yep. 1 year, 2 months exactly. September, October, November. Yeah, 3 months. I lost my count. I'm not good at math. Up to today, nobody has seen that video. And you cannot tell me it's evidence. The guy is appearing in court, testifying. So there's no secrecy anymore if you have the evidence presented. He said he saw the guy on a video. Where's that video? Where is the guy's face in it? 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒐𝒎 lied, and he is contributing to people who are actively working to ruin a man's life based on no evidence. God is waiting for you. As soon as they did that, Brikama Area Council went through their records and came out with a statement saying this guy does not work for Brikama Area Council and there's no record indicating that he ever worked for Brikama Area Council. Why were they adamant? Why did Sankare put that in there? These are the questions you keep asking for yourself. Lamin K said he came out and said, Madi says, I hope you and your UDP people are happy. 2 police officers are killed. Adam Barrow came out and said, this was to intimidate the police. How did he know that? Sankare said, this guy used to work for Brikama Area Council and he was at the protest. They call it the protest just to label it because the people were gathered for solidarity. Protest, you require a permit. They went there to show solidarity just like any courthouse. People will go there because it's a public hearing. If you're interested, you go. So on that show, 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒐𝒎 made some bold statements. He claimed that, and I'm quoting him now, the information is overwhelming. Had the alleged gunman succeeded and his co-conspirators, pay attention to that, he said co-conspirators. So far, there's only 1 person in custody. The sister is accused of accessory after the fact. So she was not part of the conspiracy. But pay attention, he said co-conspirators. That's important. His co-conspirators, there would have been chaos and confusion in this country because for a good 1 week, they were surveillancing, that is not a good, correct English, surveilling, but he said they were surveillancing paramilitary posts, checkpoints, and they want to kill at least half a dozen paramilitary officers. Who is they? When the only person in custody is 1, they cannot establish his connection with anybody else. But 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒐𝒎 is adamant. Like I said earlier, an individual or individuals was mentioned in the police statement, and then they had 1 eyewitness who was cooperating with them. Now 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒐𝒎 is saying co-conspirators, and he is confident, at least, that there was more than 1 person. So the motivation was to kill at least half a dozen paramilitary officers, according to 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒐𝒎. That was the motivation. The police are unearthing evidence after evidence. He goes on to call the family members that the shooter confided in to report to the nearest police station to give evidence. So he continued, the man, after he shot these people, was met by co-conspirators at a mosque within that vicinity who actually provided the getaway car and drove him to the thick forest of Casamance for safety. The police have uncovered this because Mr. Bojang has been exceptionally cooperative and they are very happy with his information. Everything he said here is a lie because Ousainou Bojang denies any of this. He never even mentioned any of it. When they took him to the area of the shooting, he said he has never been there. So where did Ibrahim Sankare get this information from? And this was within hours of the guy being, the police officers being shot. This was on September 14th. Like I said, yeah, actually less than 48 hours after the shooting. So now we know all of that is a lie, everything that he said. Either that or the police are not competent, because the only other person on trial for these murders, like I said, is the sister who was accessory after the fact. So where is all these co-conspirators? Where is the taxi driver? Where is the people that met in the mosque? What kind of criminal does that? What was the getaway car? Where did they drive the person to? Which Casaman's destination? Who was the driver? What was the registration of the vehicle? They did provide one, but that doesn't match the vehicle that the accused person said his white woman, as he called him, gave to him. So as they did this, government spokesperson, the president, president's advisor, as they're doing this, their surrogates on social media were ramping it up too. UDP, 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 UDP. They killed the police officers thanks to UDP. They were ramping it up on social media because their mission was something. They just didn't expect things to go the way it did. But when they went in their meeting, that's what they were talking about. The guy who killed these police officers, let's be aware, is a professional. One shot killed the party. One other shot killed Sang. The other shot, so 3 shots, all of them hit their target. And they were moving targets. You think that person is not a professional, not professionally trained? And that is why they throw in the Casamance element there. The Casamance rebels, Sankare said that on Coffee Time, is because in the Gambia, you're either a security officer, the police, the army, or whatever, in order for you to get training in handling a gun. The only other place you can get that is to be a rebel in southern Senegal. They will train you to handle a gun. That is why they try to draw that connection that Ousainou Bojang was one of those rebels. That's why he felt comfortable going to the Casamance to escape into those thick forests, because he was once in that forest. The person who did this is a professional. You shoot, the shot runs out, somebody falls, and then the crowd gathers. We all know in the Gambia, Wuro Kuma, and then, you know, chaos. That person will not be calm enough to take a second shot, especially to another police officer. And the first person he shot, according to some insiders, was the person carrying a gun. How did he make that calculation? 3 police officers are there, only 1 person is carrying a gun. The first one you shot is the one carrying the gun. The second person is the other male. And then the 3rd person was the female. Level of threat he was assessing. That's a professional mindset. Does Ousainou Bojang strike you as somebody who is that professional? But we will see more details. So all of this nonsense happening before we had any official details coming from the police at that point. So on September 15th, there was a National Security Advisor and Inspector General of Police joint press briefing. So the keynote speaker at that briefing was Mamadou Sow, DIG. You guys all remember him. He started off with a synopsis, what he called a synopsis. I'll give a synopsis. From the get-go, it was clear he was on an offensive against the public skepticism, because by this time, there was so much going on in public. Everybody that spoke on it, unless you are affiliated to the president and his party, was suspicious that this guy was the person who killed these police officers. Nothing added up. Journalists went to interview his neighbors and his family, 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒆𝒔 specifically. And a lot of the details that I got here also, because, you know, I don't follow the court proceedings either on camera or not, and I'm not there. So I rely on the newspaper reporting of what happened in the courthouse, Point newspaper, Foroyaa, 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒆𝒔 mainly, to go through what it is that Ousainou Bojang and their star witness, Mama Jabi, was revealing in court. So credit to them. But because of all that information spreading in the public sphere, there's always an information vacuum. When something happens, those who have the information should come out and clarify. Otherwise, people will fill the vacuum with whatever theories that they have. And that was what was happening. So immediately he came out, you can tell from his demeanor that he was going on the offensive, attacking people for spreading their opinions on the information that was taking place. So he cautioned that, rather he warned people against unrefined information. Why should it be refined? Information is information. When we get it, we just put it out. But they want to refine it to suit a certain narrative, which is their narrative that this person has connections to UDP and this shooting incident has to be connected to the UDP folks because they incited the violence against police officers. And then whatever happens after that will be for the courts to decide. That was their goal. My speculation. So he goes on to say, here is the truth, the whole truth, according to DIG. So I'm going to read exactly what he said because I had to do my investigation. I had to go back and read his statement. This is why I'm doing this in English because, you know, it is going to flow easier, but we'll try to translate it and do it in the local language as well. But DIG, so that was the main takeaway. People were all confused because he was set to confuse people. That's why he came out, to confuse people. So everything I'm going to say now is quoting him. On that day, we noticed a significant amount of telephone traffic from the suspect and a lot of callers between the hours of 1800 to 2100. So those of you that are not familiar with military time, 1800 is 6 p.m., 2100 is 9 p.m. Note that time, between 1800 and 2100, a high volume of telephone traffic. He proceeded to apologize in advance because, according to him, now I'm going to quote him, I will be using acronyms here that are coded, and it's probably only those who are working in the security fraternity who can uncode, which is not a good word, who can uncode those codes. This was the point when everybody started saying, uh-oh, he's about to confuse us, and that's exactly what he did. So he was going to bamboozle the whole entire country with his nonsense. So, quoting him now, this telephone traffic was identified under grid 02854 Whiskey Echo 925. If you put this into context, it gives you 𝒂𝒊𝒏 turntable. That's a cell tower, but it is coded as this, and it is only us who knows. So basically he's telling us don't ask any questions, only we know and we're not going to tell you. He proceeded. Few hours later, the same signals were picked up at grid 004-29902 Sierra Zulu and close to latitude 1310. You put this into perspective, it gives you between Sifo and Dimbaya. So moments later, the same signal were picked up at grid 35593 Echo Tango 0041 latitude 1355. That is the edge of the Gambian border with Casamance. This means the suspect was moving. His telephone signals went dead in Senegalese territory. This is what we know, and it is a fact. That's IGP. I'm still quoting him. Remember I told you to pay attention to the time. So I'm going to continue reading from there. His telephone signal went dead in Senegal. Actually, everything I'm going to say, starting now, will be quoting him exactly from that press conference. I transcribed it. His telephone signal went dead in Senegalese territory. This is what we know, and it is a fact. By 1700 to 1800, we received the first signal of his presence in the direction of Sierra Yeli, or we say Sierra Yankee, at the Senegalese border. 10 to 15 kilometers approximation of the Gambia-Casamance border, indicating a signal of somebody who is present there and who is most likely the suspect. Remember I said take note of the time? 1800 to 2100 was what he said at first. He said, on the day we noticed significant amount of telephone traffic from suspect and a lot of callers between the hours of 1800 to 2100. Now, in the same press conference, within seconds of each other, he said, by 1700 to 1800, which is 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., we received the first signal of his presence in the direction of Sierra Yeli or Sierra, I don't know what the hell that is, Senegalese border, 10 to 15 kilometers approximation, which is also going to be problematic. That 10 to 15 kilometers is going to be problematic because he continued, the protocols were applied. Most of you here are aware there is a 5-kilometer radius hot pursuit between the two countries. So 10 to 15 kilometers approximation. But our hot pursuit only ends in 5 kilometers. You see the contradictions. In the heat of the moment, people were not paying attention to this. But this is what was going on. You were tracking the guy, you said from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Now, how did you come down to 5 p.m.? And how did that place him in Casamance at that early hour when you were actually tracking him from 6 p.m.? It doesn't make any sense. So because of that hot pursuit, according to him, quote, I invoked that hot pursuit through the Minister of Interior. I don't know where he called, but before even when the telephone comes, I put up an armada. Within 10 minutes, they were on the borderline of this 1255 grade. He said 1355. Now he's saying 1255 grade. Reference, the grade reference, ready to enter. Basically, ready to enter Senegal. The protocols were worked on, and within 20 minutes, they were on site. Somebody that we did not identify at the time was handed to us, purportedly being the suspect. We did not confirm whether it was the suspect or not at the time. But true to his own confessions, we connected the dots and we suspected that is the very suspect we were looking for. So in that 30 hours now, we have significant leads that lead to a direction where he is totally implicated. And the weapon used from his own mouth, that he has been possessing a weapon for a very long time, and indeed this said weapon was with him the Thursday that court sitting was in Banjul, from his own mouth. You see again, the 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏 court sitting, he's invoking that, conveniently placing the suspect at the courthouse and with a gun at the courthouse because he confessed. Ousainou Bojang said he did not have a gun, he doesn't know how to handle a gun, he was not at the protest, and nobody saw him at the protest. Ibrahima Sankare doesn't have a video of him. All of it lies, complete lies from the DIG down. So he still continues. Again, the dress he was identified with, that is the dress and boots that he has. He have led investigators to that domain, and all of them are recovered. You remember the suspect tried on the boots at court or in the courthouse. They did not fit. Remember that? The scenario with the O.J. Simpson glove. The police had that in their possession for over 1 year, and they still decided to present it as evidence. Why did they not know that this does not fit the suspect's feet? If that was actually the shoes worn by the suspect or the shooter, and they did not fit this guy's feet, that means he didn't do it. Either they didn't have the actual shoes or they didn't have the actual suspect, but one of the two does not fit the crime. So the IGP, from all indications, the deliberate and calculated preemption of the officials from the police position by political operatives was calculated to create a narrative. So essentially they had a narrative. UDP is responsible for this. Let us frame it in such a way that our evidence is going to match that narrative. They had that meeting, and they think all of us in the country are stupid, that they will come out with this kind of Swiss cheese of a case, and then everybody is going to buy it, that, oh yeah, it's true, because the state says it's true. When at every angle, within seconds of each other, they'll be contradicting. You remember when he talked about the gun, and then the national security guy came, and he also mentioned the gun. There was some contradiction, and a journalist asked the question, I think it was Flesdan, and the IG got angry. It's on video, you can check 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏 for that. So in relation to all this framing, that was why they arrested Sabali at the time, they arrested Bayo Sonko at the time, accusing them of being connected to this police shooting because they threatened a public officer. So Another curious thing that happened is if the police, there was a crime committed and the police announced it, journalists are going to be curious. So what would they do? They will go and investigate. That was what that guy Mankajang did. They said this guy was arrested in Jululung. He was a TikTok journalist, if I may call him that. He went there to interview people. 𝒘𝒄𝒄𝒏 went to Brookwood and the neighbors to interview them. They condemned those acts. Oh, the police are investigating. You guys don't need to be investigating and, you know, muddying the waters, blah, 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 witness tampering. And Mankajang, when he was there, he did a live video or on his way back, said he gathered some evidence that he's going to share with the people. They arrested him. That evidence never came out. Who did he interview? Who did he talk to? What did he find out? They arrested the guy. And after a day or two, they released him. And that never came. Did the police do a case of catch and kill? Or did they do a case of intimidate him that you shouldn't publish this? Or did whatever they did, the story never came out. So that's also suspicious. Why? You already got your chief suspect in custody. You collected the evidence. What's wrong with people making inquiries? Especially journalists. So the question is, why would the state undermine its own investigations? That's the question. So essentially, from all these activities, we see that from the president to the government spokesperson to the police, the national security leadership, and the political mouthpieces of the NPP, every speaker who addressed the issue or got interviewed was adamant in placing the suspect or the shooter that they claim is the shooter within the crowds of the UDP and linking the shooter to chairman of Brikama Area Council specifically. But why? We will find that out in Ousainou Bojang's testimony. So bear with me. I know it's long. I usually don't like to make long videos, but we are talking about the life of a person here. And I can't see the comments. I don't know what's going on with my video feed. So let me know if you guys are having any problems. Let me log in and see if I can do it on my computer too. Are you guys hearing me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Either way, I'll just record and share it if it is not coming through. But let's go to the testimony. Okay, thank you, Sister Fatu. So the testimony. So on December 3rd, 2024, the newspaper headline from 𝒘𝒄𝒄𝒏 read, Ousainou Bojang tells court, Lamin Cham accused me of being sent by UDP to kill police officers. Even the investigators are now putting words in his mouth. UDP sent you to kill these police officers. I told you that was their narrative. That's the line they wanted to go with. So that was his opening defense. Ousainou Bojang stated that the police officer named Lamin Cham accused him of being sent by UDP to kill police officers in his recounting of what he was subjected to during the interrogation. One could see clearly that the interviewing officers were asking leading questions to try to get a confession that indeed the UDP was involved. According to Ousainou Bojang, while being transported to the police station, the vehicle stopped near the site of the shooting and he was asked to explain how he fired the gun, to which he replied, I never held a gun in my hand and I don't know how to use it because I am not a serviceman. Basically, I'm not trained as a serviceman. Like I said, we will reference here Ibrahima Sankare. His claim that the accused had ties to Casamance rebel groups and fighting the insurgency in southern Senegal. He did that purposely to say this guy has training in handling a gun. So if the accused has no record of military service in the Gambia or police service in the Gambia, where did he learn to be such a good shooter? Like I said, the shooter was calm, the shooter was on target, and he didn't harm anybody else except those he targeted. That's a professional. Where did he get that training from? So maybe in their meeting, they asked that question and Ibrahima Sankare was like, oh yeah, let's put them in Casamance for the rebels. Those people don't shoot to be, what's it called, marksmen. They're fighting an insurgency. But despite his testimony to the police that he does not have firearm training and does not know how to handle one, they insisted that he did. He stated that the police officer Lamin Cham said Cham knew Bojang. Lamin Cham said he knew Ousainou Bojang, sorry, very well. and claims that Bojang was at 𝒂𝒂𝒏's demonstration having a push and pull with the PIU officers. You see where Sankara is getting his information from? The investigating officers. How did Lamin Cham know that this guy was there? Either the police are getting that lead from the Sankara or the government people, or the police are supplying it to Sankara. It's a two-way traffic or a one-way traffic. They are feeding off of each other. So he said he was at 𝒂𝒂𝒏's court hearing. Where did he get that information from? Did he confirm that information to be true? Does he have physical evidence placing Ousainou Bojang at what they call a demonstration? It was not a demonstration. So, according to him, that was when Lamin Cham said to him, "We know that it is the UDP people who sent you to kill these people, but you must talk." You see where they're going with this? Basically, they framed their story and now they're telling him, confirm it. Confession. But we will see that in the process, Ousainou was also tortured. The same thing that used to happen on the Jammeh is happening on the Adama Barrow. So at that point, according to Ousainou Bojang, Sow told his fellow officers that he would not reveal the truth until they read the anti-crime unit. So remember, when he was arrested, they drive him to the site of this shooting, and they were asking these questions along the way. So Sow, one of the police officers, said, "This guy will not talk until we get to the anti-crime unit." Why? Because, according to him, he said when they got to the anti-crime unit, he was pushed inside the cell. If you saw, a police detective told him at the time, "When we are done with you, you will talk." That is the classic case of intimidation. So basically, we're going to do what we need to do to get you to talk. So that's what happened at that scene. So that same night, he said between 11 a.m. and 12 a.m., he was taken to an interrogation room where senior officers were present, and he was questioned about his whereabouts. He told them about his job and offered to take them to his job to corroborate his story as he worked the 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. shift, which was the time frame within which the shooting happened. And he was a guard, basically guarding what he said the white woman, 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔, he was involved with. So he stated that he told the police officers that he had some financial problems with the woman who threatened him, as a result of which he was instructed by his superiors to report the matter to the CID at Senegambia, which he did. So now Ousainou is telling us he has, he has a trail of evidence linking him to the police stations where he reports cases. He keeps going to the police station. Why are they not? In fact, now the court is asking for a log from the Sukuta police station, but I would say they should ask for a log from the Senegambia police station too, because Ousainou, so far his story is credible. I went to this police station to report this matter. I went to this other police station to report this other matter. Why are they not requisitioning that evidence from the police station and use it in their prosecution? And he even mentions the name of people that he met at the police station. So he went to Senegambia and he visited the CID office every Tuesday afternoon. And he spoke to one 𝒂𝒂𝒏. And he claimed, he told the investigators, "You can ask 𝒂𝒂𝒏, I was at the police station to report my incident with my white woman." So he continued. The police agreed to go with him to the compound of the white woman after that interrogation in the middle of the night, where he worked as a guard. On the way there, they stopped at an unfamiliar location and asked him to explain how he escaped the scene of the shooting. Like, what are you doing? You already took him there. He said he doesn't know how to handle a gun. But on the way, they stopped anyway and said, "Show us how you escaped from this scene." He again told them he has never been in that area. They kept asking him, and they said, "Oh, do you recognize that story building?" And he said, "I've never been in this area. I don't recognize that story building." So according to that, Ousainou, at that point, the police officers got into a disagreement amongst themselves on how they were conducting their work. Specifically, Officer 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒏 and Officer Sow. He stated that there was another Officer 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒏 who said the way Sow was asking was not how they do their work. So basically, the police are condemning each other for how they're conducting their investigations in front of the suspect. After that argument, he was taken to Sow's vehicle. Basically, he was in Sow's vehicle when they got to the scene, But because of that push and pull, they decided to take him from Saul's vehicle and put him in somebody else's vehicle, who was 𝒑𝒊𝒏. He called him 𝒑𝒊𝒏, which then transported him the rest of the way to the woman's compound where Ousainou Bojang worked as a security guard. So he said the police officers could not access the apartments in the compound because they were occupied at the time. So they proceeded to the storage units. 2 of them they broke down to go in and investigate to see if they would find the weapon. And still now, as we are talking, they don't have that weapon. So there's no murder weapon. They just have a pair of shoes that they say the suspect wore, but it doesn't fit his feet. So how did they make him the shooter? If that, like I said, either the shoes were the wrong shoes or the suspect is the wrong suspect. But those two cannot be true. If it fits him, it's his shoes. If it doesn't fit him, it's not his shoes. Either those are not the shoes or the suspect is not the suspect. So if you don't have the shoes, you don't have the gun, how did you say that this guy is the one who killed the police officers? So during that site, they also met Ousainou's colleague, who confirmed to the police that, in fact, Ousainou was just a mere security guard. He was not a serviceman, not trained in weapons. He corroborated Ousainu's story. So it was at that site that one of the officers, 𝒕𝒉𝒂𝒏𝒏, recovered a pair of shoes and claimed those were the shoes worn by the shooter. Ousainou Bojang told him at the scene that those shoes were not his shoes. They were his brother's shoes. I think he was a carpenter or something who leaves his shoes there. That they were the wrong size. They do not fit him. But the genius officer, instead of testing the shoes to confirm the size, insisted they were his shoes. So according to Ousainou, he was later asked to try on the shoes, which he did in the presence of IGP, which we will get to later. But nonetheless, the police still decided they will bring it to court and present it as evidence. That's the domestic, like any prosecution can do. The defense lawyer asked Ousainou to put on the shoes in the court again, and they could not fit. And so the court, that's the judge speaking now, the court observed that exhibit P26, which is the shoes, could not fit the first accused person, Ousainou Bojang. So they confirmed Ousainu's claim. So far, he's been truthful. These are not my shoes, but they said they're his shoes. Now it is confirmed they are not his shoes because they don't fit him. He is credible so far. So on the same trip, they stopped by Sokoto police station on their return journey, according to Ousainou. The reason was for an identification parade. So they said they had 7 people who came forward and said that they know who the shooter is, or they have seen the shooter. So they were brought into Sokoto police station to identify the shooter. So you know how they do in the films where they parade people. Okay, here's Nata, here's Mamadou, I'm just looking at the people on my screen. Here's Mamadou Sabali, here's Stuttgart. Tell us who you think is the shooter here. So they did an identification parade. The police claimed that they had 7 witnesses who have seen the shooter. When Ousainou was paraded before them to identify, none of the 7 people confirmed ever seeing Ousainou. They said they never saw the man before. So he was not at the scene. He told them he was not there. The 7 people that said they saw the shooter said they never saw Ousainou. That means he was not at the scene. That is not the person that they saw. Why did the police dismiss that? 7 people. All of them said they cannot confirm that they've ever seen Ousainou Bojang before. So this was another frustration for the officers. And imagine when they were transporting the victim or the suspect, they were constantly having conversations among themselves and within earshot of him, and he hears everything that they say. So he observed that 𝒑𝒉𝒂𝒏𝒏, one of the officers, became emotional and told his colleagues that Commissioner Sow would not mislead them. Ba also expressed frustration, stating that Commissioner Sow was disrupting their work. Ousainou Bojang was hearing all of this. So basically, their story is not lining up. The evidence is not matching their claim. And, you know, everybody is saying that. So he stated to Ousainou, he stated that Ba also said that if we reach the anti-crime unit, I will release you. Or I will leave you. Basically, Mbebulala. So I think there's some issue with translation that I noticed when I was reading this, but I will leave you. That means I will release you. That's my understanding, my own interpretation. So he became hopeful that since nothing is adding up, the shoes don't add up, I was not at the scene, those who can identify the shooter show me, and they said I am not the shooter. And the police are now frustrated that they probably got the wrong person. So now they suspect that, okay, we might end up releasing this guy. And Ousainou was hopeful that, you know, this is what's going to happen. So he had some hope that he would be released from the police given the events so far. The events took a curious turn after that. So from that point on, he said, 𝒂𝒂 then told me that the way the situation was, if they released me, I would be killed. That is like super curious. Who would kill him? Why would they kill him? If he was in the clear, a mere statement from the police saying that the person we suspected or we arrested turns out not to be the suspect because we had 7 witnesses who can identify that he was not the shooter, so we had to release him. We are still investigating. That simple statement, anybody who was looking for vengeance would be satisfied with that. They would not follow Ousainou. So why was he saying that if we release you, you might be killed? Does he know who the shooters are, and that if they release Ousainou, he might be killed by the same shooter to cover his own tracks because he might think Ousainou is a loose end? Is that what's happening here? Or maybe something more sinister is going on. So what then follows maybe explains the situation better. After telling him that he could be killed if released, now Ousainou is speaking, he then took me to an office and asked me to sit down. He started chatting with me. He asked whether I was going to drink tea. I told him that if I had it, but if I didn't have it, then that's fine. He took out the raw tea, but did not prepare it in my presence. He pours it from his flask and puts it in a cup. While drinking the coffee, I was chatting with him, and then I fell asleep. I could not remember how I left his office to the cell. The following morning, I saw myself in the cell, and that was on a Friday. I was in the cell until after Friday prayers. That sounds curious. I was then taken before a panel. While I was sitting there, there was a man that I never knew came in that day. I had him telling his colleagues to allow him to go with me and kill me. The other ones were laughing and took it as a joke. I sat there until they were done with their discussions, and they took me back to the cell. When I got to the cell, they pushed me on fellow detainees. There I fell on them. I was there groaning heavily. The other detainees asked whether they were from beating me, and I told them yes, because they wanted me to accept the allegations. I told them that I was not going to say that, what I did not know. If they wanted, let them kill me. I was there until the morning. On Saturday, no one came for me. Why was that conversation taking place? Why does it sound like he was drugged? Because how can you be chatting with somebody and suddenly fall asleep and then don't realize what happened until you see yourself in a cell? Why was somebody talking within earshot of the suspect saying, let me go and kill him? Were those all intimidation tactics to get him to comply to their storyline? Or were they actually determined to do what the junglers used to do? Maybe they are doing this all on purpose just to intimidate him, to show him that we are serious. This is a serious matter. Exactly. They wanted to intimidate a confession out of him. Who was that man? Why were they making such statements within earshot of the shooter? So nothing came out of that. Ousainou was determined not to admit to something. Yep, the brother was a welder. Not to admit to something that he didn't do. So it would appear that the police were getting frustrated. Even the IGP at the time, Abdoulaye Sagna, got involved. He personally instructed that Ousainou try on the shoes. That was when he tried the shoes in front of the police, which he did, and confirmed to him that the shoes were not his, but his brother's, which was what he told the officers. IGP Sagna got angry and brought out the classic, "Shut up, do you know who you are speaking to?" Ousainou speaking now. He told me that all the officers sitting here, he was their boss. He told me that they will lock me up. So IGP Sagna, according to Ousainou, proceeded to take out handcuffs with chains attached, and he instructed Commissioner Sow that if they are putting me in any cell, let them make sure that my hands and legs are handcuffed. Why was that necessary? The man is already in a police cell, under police custody, secured behind bars, with police officers on the ground. Why do you need to put him in a cell and put handcuffs on him inside the cell? What if he has a medical emergency in that condition? What if there was a fire outbreak? They don't think about things like this. Human life matters to them in no way. So after that interaction with IGP Sagna, That was when I was taken back to the airport police station. When we got there, 𝒂𝒂𝒏 took out the handcuffs and said it was from the authorities, so he must do it. Then he handcuffed my hands and my legs and put me in a cell at the airport station. I was there for 3 days and my feet started swelling up. Ousainou told the court that the officer in command, OC, at the airport police station instructed officers to remove his handcuffs. However, they explained that the keys were with the anti-crime unit officers who had initially placed the cuffs on him. So you cuffed a man, put him in a cell, arms and legs, locked him up inside a cell behind bars, and took the key with you. That stupid literal interpretation of 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒂𝒏𝒏 is what they do. Why would you put a person inside a cell and you're seeing visible signs of distress on him, and then you're standing there arguing whether you should take it off or not? That's the level of idiocy that we have there, and it's cruel. Handcuffed a suspect, he's not even confirmed the killer yet. You so far cannot tie him to the crimes. All your evidence is falling apart. You put him in a cell, and instead of leaving the keys with the officer in charge saying, here's the keys for the handcuff in case of emergency, you took it with you to a different location. So all those 3 days, Ousainou was vulnerable. If he had a cardiac episode, if he had a fainting episode, if he had a seizure, if he had any kind of incident there, he was at the mercy of nature, basically. So according to Ousainou, the OC then contacted anti-crime unit, and when their personnel arrived, she directed them to unlock the handcuffs. He stated that Detective So initially hesitated, citing orders from higher authorities, but eventually complied after the OC reiterated her instructions. So basically, they reached a compromise, because according to him, 𝒂𝒂𝒏 uncuffed me. When he did that, he handcuffed my hands with a smaller one. They left me there and went. I was there the following week when I was taken to Kanifing court with my sister. So they took the cuffs off his legs and then just left it on his hands. So he was still in there for almost 2 weeks, because initially it was 3 days when he started swelling up, and then they took it off and left it there, and then the next week he went to court. 1 week in a cell with police presence, still in handcuffs. Initially, I was going to say, oh yeah, the OC knew her job, because he insisted that this person is under my custody. Anything that happens to him, I am responsible, so take the cuffs up. But then they ended up just doing the same thing, just to his wrists now. After all this, the police decided to access the suspect's phone. So remember, they didn't do any of that. DIG talking about, oh, Echo Tango, Sierra Alpha, Sierra Yankee, Sierra nonsense. Now, they decide to go into the suspect's phone. After the court appearance, we were there until the court adjourned the case to the High Court. Then I was taken to the anti-crime. Then 𝒂𝒂𝒏 asked me to unlock my phone, and I did. He went through my WhatsApp conversations and knew that what I was telling him was the truth. That I had some issues with my white woman, and he saw the conversations between me and my English friend. He then went through my call logs. He realized that he realized what I told him was the truth. I was at work the night of the incident. 𝒂𝒂𝒏 told me that he came to caution me, but at that moment, he would not do it. He then packed the file and the phone and went with them. What did he want to caution him about? Is it another ploy to come across as a friendly officer just to get what he wants from him? So, Sierra Alpha Tango, high phone traffic, Sierra Yankee. You now access his phone. There is no evidence of that. Everything is falling apart, piece by piece. The witnesses who saw the gunman cannot identify him. The shoes that the shooter wore does not fit his feet. The call logs do not reveal any high volume of calls between his number and any other numbers. Why are you still keeping the man? Ousainou then mentioned another officer named 𝒉𝒂𝒏. Oh, hold on. Yep. He then mentioned that another officer named 𝒉𝒂𝒏, whom he said, asked me whether I was the one who killed the police officers. Again, he denied. I told him that I never hurt anyone in my life and I never held a gun in my hand before. Then 𝒉𝒂𝒏 got up and said, I should not say that. and they tried looking for the gun, but they could not find it. Jiba said I should tell him that I threw the gun in the river. Why are you telling the witness what to say? You just find out what you need to find out. They do not care about their murdered colleagues. That's the truth. The police do not care because we even watch it in films. A police detective, a police sergeant, a police investigator, they get a hint of a crime, they get a lead, and their seniors want to shut it down. They refuse. They go in the back channels and follow those leads, and they come up and realize that my seniors were actually involved in the crime here. So why are they doing all this? Your colleagues have been shot and killed. Instead of you moving heaven and earth to use your investigation skills and find out who actually did this, you are insisting on keeping somebody and accusing him, or pinning the crime on somebody who so far all the evidence is showing you did not commit the crime. All of that evidence is showing you he did not commit the crime because none of them fit what you said was actually the case. So why are you still insisting on it? So Ousainou Bojang, thanks to him, he still refused to break to their intimidation tactics because he knows what lies behind it. Basically, you're telling him, give me your life, and then, what am I going to get out of it? You say you did this, we're going to lock you for life, or, death penalty. I told Jiba that I never held a gun in my hand. I told him that whatever they were saying was not correct. I never held a gun. Officer Jiba urged him to accept the allegations and claim that it will help them address the case effectively. I don't know how effective that is. Admit to killing people and then, our case will be effectively handled. What is effective about forcing a confession from an innocent person? Catch him in a lie and you can be sure his alibi does not match up. That's how you investigate. You said this, you said that, but your alibi says something different. That's how you know he's lying. But so far, all his alibis are lining up exactly as he says. And all your evidence is contradicting everything that you claim is the truth. So Ousainou told Jiba that it has never happened. They took me out of the police, out of the office because they couldn't get what they wanted from me. They took me back to the airport police station, and I was there until the day they took me to Mile 2 Central Prisons. So can you imagine that? There's a lot to go through. We will get to that maybe in another episode because this has gone on too long already. How they apprehended Ousainou, and according to Mama Jabi, and how Ousainou actually relayed or accounted for his whereabouts from the time of the shooting to the time that he was arrested by the police, and exactly what happened. And you will see 100% that this guy is not a killer. Somebody who killed 2 police officers, ran away, and left the jurisdiction of the country that he did the crime in, only to be caught by some lonely, weak woman that he can easily overpower. Sat there for 3 hours and waited for the police to come and arrest him in a different country. How stupid is he? If he is that stupid, he would not be able to pull off the killing of the police officers. But we will see all of that laid out, and Mama Jabi's lies. That woman, I hope she repents, because you're about to ruin somebody's life. You're plotting, and we're going to talk about this because I think in the Gambia, I don't know the judicial system that well, but it looks like it's a panel of judges. There's no jury system. Like, they decide whether the evidence matches or not. And the way the Supreme Court or the courts are going in the Gambia right now, I would not trust them 100% that they will execute what they need to execute fairly. Everybody is just suffering from emotional outbursts here and there. Like, it's crazy. So we'll go through the apprehension and recount, because so far all the witnesses that are supposed to identify the victim or the shooter came forward, saw Ousainou, and said, this is not the guy we saw. So those people cannot be witnesses for the state because they actually said this is not the guy based on eyewitness account. So those people are out. The star witness, who was the one that called the police and said the guy who killed the police officers is here, is Mama Jabi. We will get into her story and how it is full of holes and lies and nonsense and all completely, utterly made up and Compare that to Ousainou's statement on how he got from Gambia to Casamance, why he was there, and how he met Mama Jabi. And then you see, based on those two stories, which one is true. This case should have been kicked out a long time ago because the state cannot. You put people on a jury, they will reject this. The guy is not guilty. It's that simple. Based on what is coming out so far, he is not. They don't have the gun. The shoes don't fit him. The eyewitnesses said he's not the person they saw. What else is there that you're going to pin on him? You don't have the ballistics. You don't have the fingerprints on the weapon. Even if that is circumstantial, it is best to make a mistake on the side of caution than to ruin somebody's life. And that is what we are faced with. And Mama Jabi will hear her piece too. That woman is a liar. She cooked up this whole story. And you'll see she has a relationship. I don't know what kind of relationship, whether friendship, family, or whatever, with one of the relatives of Adama Barrow. And Ousainou will tell you, like in context, if you hear his narration, you will not know why that matters. But if you put it into context, in the face of all the evidence that's coming out, you will know why. Because when Mama Jabi confronted Ousainou Bojang, he said, "What have you guys done to Adama Barrow?" It's like, I have not done anything to Adama Barrow. It's like, why would you say that in the heat of the moment? Turns out the person that Mama Jabi called was actually related to Adama Barrow. Adama Barrow's blood relative that, I don't know, Musa, his name is Musa. He works at DRA. That's who Mama Jabi called from Casamance to say the suspect is here. And then that was the guy who, it's all a network, all of it. It's all connected. And that poor woman, sitting in a police cell for doing nothing other than helping her brother. Basically, Ousainou had this problem with the white woman, and the white woman decided to porn shame him by publishing their private videos and, pictures online. So Ousainou, being Ousainou, said this is humiliating, And in the Gambia, this will not surprise anybody. We all do this Moria stuff and all that. Like, Jamfalabela Kuol Kono, Wuli Yellow Kuol Fenka, go to Marabous and stuff. That's how he ended up going to Casamance. To find somebody to help him rectify this situation between him and his white woman. I'm not going to get into those personal details. We all know what that means when you catch a white woman, when it comes down to this relationship that people try to have in order to access, travel and all that. I'm not saying that's the motive. I'm not going to get into that. But nothing is out of place when it comes to what Ousainou was trying to do. And that was the whole situation, how Mama Jabi entered the picture of somebody who can help him with spiritual means. So the way he accounts it convinced me more than the way Mama Jabi relates the story, because she is dumb as a bucket of shrimp. Like, it doesn't add up. I feel for this young man, and I'm going to add my voice that I don't think he's guilty, and I'm going to give the reasons why. And hopefully, the people prosecuting this, and I mean the judges, will come to their senses and realize that this doesn't add up, and not be political players or pawns in the president's game of trying to smear political opponents, no matter what it takes, even if it is the life of 2 young police officers who committed no crime, did no wrong, just murdered so that you can get to your political opponents. That's what is happening here. And we will, go through it piece by piece, and hopefully, the right people hear the message, look at the evidence from the perspective of ordinary people, and see that Ousainou Bojang is not capable of what he's being accused of. And we hope we get to that point. So anyway, I don't know what's going on with my phone. It's been long enough. I don't usually do these long videos because it's time consuming, but we'll stop here and then we'll get into the apprehension probably tomorrow or so, since it's the weekend, before we start the week. So that way it's fresh in people's mind. Allah Barak.